Okay, so what are your key achievements during your school placement? So you need to think about your planning, how you're getting on with that, and think about long-term planning. I think most experienced teachers get into the mode of planning for the week. Okay, so they sort of, once you get into the rhythm of things, you will be able to sort of plan ahead, usually on Thursday and Friday, when you get really honed in on this, thinking about what you will do in the following week and writing that in your planner. Organisation and time management is really important in teaching. Try and keep within the kind of decent hours so that you're not overwhelmed with work. I know that's difficult, but I think it's an ongoing discussion that you need to have with your mentor, with the people in Goldsmiths, and figure out a strategy by the end of the PGCE course that is beginning to get you into a kind of idea of how you might have a life and also teach. Okay, classroom strategies. Now that's a huge area, dealing with behaviour. I think we'll come back to that a little bit later on. Developing your persona as a teacher. So what sort of roles do you find comfortable? How are you going to behave with students and with other colleagues? And then crucial, I would say 90% of this job is confidence. So it's learning to actually see and believe in yourself, and believe in yourself in front of people, and being positive about yourself and positive about what you're teaching and positive about your students. That is half the battle. If you're able to do that, you can actually skim over many of the other issues that come up. Okay. Standards progress record. You need to use this as a criterion guide. I have done another video on this that goes through the sort of precise paperwork. It is well worth looking at. It is not the most interesting video in the world, but it does actually show you how you can do that. And the other video I made is an example of someone who basically, and he allowed me to say this, he was judged sort of good by the end of his PGCE placement. He was clearly an outstanding teacher who had a mentor that was kind of negative, and even though he's brilliant, was not giving him that grade. He showed in his standards progress record that he'd got evidence that he was outstanding according to the criteria that's in the booklet. So it's well worth looking at that. Where do you locate yourself for each standard? Where and what is your evidence? There is an example of how to reflect on your progress on the front of the standards progress record, which is worth looking at. Okay. Teaching standards 1. A student wrote, during this placement I've demonstrated that I can encourage pupils in my classes to contribute in an atmosphere conducive to learning. The student has identified where they're located on the grading criteria. My mentor commented that in my Year 7 lessons, pupils were all working purposely. There was a buzz of activity in the classroom. The student was given some evidence to support their grading. See observation 12.11 2015, Year 7. And then where the evidence is located. So that's an example of how to do it for that one. Reflection on TS1. An example. During this placement, I've demonstrated that I can encourage pupils in my classes to contribute in an atmosphere conducive to learning. My mentor commented that in my Year 7 lessons, pupils were all working purposely. There was a buzz of activity in the classroom. See observation, blah. I've done this through getting to know my classes and planning work at an appropriate level. See weekly reflection, where I've discussed how I've used the information available on Year 8.3 and my observations to help in the planning of lessons for this class, which I felt I was struggling to teach. I regularly plan for group work so that pupils can work collaboratively, and I circulate around the room. See these lesson plans, etc., all dated. And then we've got the examples here of how they are using the language of the criteria. So what's underlined here, I have high expectations of pupils in my class in terms of participation and behaviour. I've done this by encouraging pupils to work both independently and collaboratively, establish a rapport with the class. What we've got here is the students beginning to use the language from the document, and that is fairly crucial to learn to do, to just get into this mode, get into it for teaching generally, because once you start to use the language that is expected of you, then you can start to kind of prove that you're meeting the criteria. I've demonstrated professional behaviour, and I'm always well prepared for my lessons and provide additional help. I've behaved collegiately, and again got supported the ethos of school, all taken from the criteria. The end of AP1 profile. Completing a standard progress record will inform you completion of a self-assessment of the AP1 profile. This needs to be completed by Monday the 12th so that your mentor can complete their portion, and uploaded on the 19th. So not got a huge amount of time. I mean, it's a little bit of latitude there, because obviously you've only got Monday to do it by. The pupil study, you need guidance in the introductory booklet, and it should be completed by the end of AP1. You'll use this in your subject sessions in January. So again, I did do a little screencast on this. It's worth looking at because I just went through the booklet, and that's a video available on YouTube, and I sent it through to some people, but I can send it through to everyone later. Okay. Yeah, so you've got, this is a kind of autumn term, and we're coming to the end of it, but you've got subject sessions at the end of next week where you can ask any questions. The end of AP1 is December the 21st. Make sure you have a break over the Christmas, and you know, do try and take a break. What I would say, and I'm saying this for the video, is this work-life balance thing I think is vital to try and think about. You might not be there at the moment completely, but you want to think about strategies for sort of really getting that balance, so that because you will be a much more effective teacher if you do have a balance where you're not just swamped by work. That's what you've got to remember. It is about being positive. It's not about being negative about teaching. It's like seeing, right, okay, I've done that, but it's also trying to, I would say, avoid perfectionism, because this job is actually probably one of the worst jobs in the world for a perfectionist, because you are never ever going to get a perfect lesson, create a perfect learner, find a perfect school, find a perfect class. There's always work to do, and in fact that's probably your job, to kind of see that there's always a bit of work to do. Okay, let's see. So the start of assessment phase 2, the tutorials on the 3rd and 4th, and some on the 5th with English actually. You've got your subject studies assignment to be handed in on the 5th of January before 10 AM via learn.gold, and you've got, if there are extenuating circumstances, that is a very official thing. You can't just email your tutor. You need to actually go and make sure that you fill in this form, and then it goes before a board who accept or decline your reasons why. I mean, you know, you do need to think carefully about your reasons why. It needs to be a decent reason why you are needing extenuating circumstances. So consider that. The rules are all set out there though, and that it's very clearly written. The Spire sessions, they run each morning of week beginning the 9th. You'll stay in the same Spire room and have a different tutor each morning. On the 13th there will be a lecture instead of workshops, and the lecture will focus on the assignment. The readings for the Spire session, each Spire group is divided into 4 reading groups. Check learn.gold to see which reading group you're in. The reading for each paper you need to prepare by the end of term, and it is important that you've read the paper assigned to your group, so that you'll be required to refer and discuss the paper in the session. So when you've found out what group you're in, you'll have basically 4 papers to kind of read before the session you go into, and be prepared to read. And you do need to have done that, because the session will be pretty tricky if you haven't. And that is